Great. Okay, so kind of how did we get to where we are understanding maybe some of the caricature of hell today? Where did it come from? If I hear it, where did it come from? And this would be my take. On that storyline we just shared, God's on a mission to reconcile heaven and earth from the destructive power of sin, death, and hell. I would say that's been the dominant storyline in most of church history. If we look at the early church, and one of the first challenges that the early church had to face was Gnosticism. And Gnosticism was kind of this idea, like the caricature story, that salvation is about God whisking us out of earth and up into heaven, or out of the material world and up into kind of this immaterial, abstract world. And the early church fought tooth and nail against that, going, no, this world, God created it good, and God is going to redeem it. And for them, that was grounded ultimately in the resurrection of Christ, that Christ's death and resurrection was about Jesus was raised in a physical body, kind of the first fruits or the foretaste of the new creation. And so, in a sense that in and through the power of Christ's resurrection, God is going to heal creation and make it new. And so, a lot of the early church's language for the topic of hell, and folks like Irenaeus, and even with Augustine and his way he describes evil as sort of this parasitic intruder that wants to tear God's good world apart. They really have this kind of dominant overarching storyline, gospel storyline in place. And then you go into the Middle Ages, and there as well, it's this gospel storyline of, Jesus has been exalted as king of this world, not some other one, and before Jesus, the kings of the earth are called to bow before him. And I think of Handel's Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever. It's this picture of the world being summoned before Christ, the King and Lord before whom this world comes under the scope and reign of his authority and his kingdom. But I think it's more in the modern era, the last few hundred years, we have in the Enlightenment, after kind of the split of going, we as humanity, we get earth, but God, you can have heaven, kind of the afterlife, that kind of stuff. And I think over time, we as Christians in America particularly, I think started to buy into the storyline of going, okay, actually, Earth's a mess, and God's going to ditch it, and nobody wants us there anymore, and so our hope is just going to kind of be in this abstract, immaterial afterlife. And I would suggest, I think it's been, particularly in the last, 100-plus years, where the more that kind of storyline has gained credence, that downstream, this sort of caricature of hell starts to rise as kind of this underground torture chamber or something that's not really the picture that we get in Scripture. Yeah.